This is iDesign Lab, a podcast where creativity and curiosity meet style and design. Curator of interiors, furnishings, and lifestyles. Hosted by Tiffany Woolley, an interior designer and a style enthusiast, along with her serial entrepreneur husband, Scott. iDesign Lab is your ultimate design podcast, where we explore the rich and vibrant world of design and its constant evolution in style and trends. iDesign Lab provides industry insight, discussing the latest trends, styles, and everything in between to better help you style your life through advice from trendsetters, designers, influencers, innovators, fabricators, and manufacturers, as well as personal stories that inspire, motivate, and excite. And join us on this elevated, informative, and lively journey into the world of all things design. Today we're talking design, craftsmanship, and the business of luxury furniture with industry veteran Guy Holbrook. As the Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Century Furniture, Guy plays a key role in shaping the brand's direction and growth. With decades of experience at top furniture companies, he's a leader in high-end, custom home furnishings. Let's dive into his journey, the future of design, and what makes Century stand out in the world of luxury interiors.
Today on the iDesign Lab podcast, we are excited to welcome Guy Holbrook, who's in our furniture industry, part of our design world, and who's right now heading up a part of Century.
Mm-hmm.
So
VP of Sales.
Yeah. That's a big
job.
Big role.
For a big company, iconic company.
It is an iconic company, and we kind of discussed that before on the podcast. It's definitely probably one of the first companies that I was ever familiar with.
Yeah, it's an iconic brand, and if you're in our industry, certainly in the middle to high end and luxury goods, you know who we are. Our company, we've spent 78 years developing this beautiful brand. It's a family-owned brand, which is a little bit of an outlier now in the industry.
That's like my favorite. I love all those stories,
and it's third generation, and our taglines are it sounds a little cliche, but we're makers. We make furniture, and I think in the industry now, there's so many people that they design beautiful furniture, but they source it somewhere and they just brand it. But we build it, and I think that's kind of
And you have your own factories here in the United States.
We have
North
multiple
Carolina.
factories underneath the Century brand, so we've actually got 4 producing factories.
Which I love that too, because in our fast-paced world where everybody wants this instant gratification, I try to, as an interior designer, lead clients back down to, I understand that heirloom, quality furniture is not necessarily everybody's priority, but it should be. And there really is a difference. So I love to be able to explore that and discuss things like that of what sets Century apart.
Sure. I mean, and I think that people need better furniture in their lives. They just need to know why.
100%.
And usually it's there's a little bit of kind of a give and take with it. Usually we tell people all the time they may have the means for better end goods and luxury goods, but what happens is they typically buy on price, maybe their first purchase, and they have to kind of get burned by that. They have to buy quality that's inferior or doesn't last or quickly fails, and then they say, well, I'm going to go back to the well. What do I need to do this time? And then they usually engage someone that's knowledgeable on construction or an interior design firm that says, here are the brands you should be buying, and here's why. It's better materials, better design, better construction, and those things have longevity, both from a stylistic standpoint and a performance standpoint.
So as you've evolved in this business, and especially in the brand of Century, where have you seen things shift of like who your customer is? Is it high-end furniture stores? Is it interior designers? Like where do you see, or where does your focus?
That's an excellent question. I mean, our industry is kind of an ecosystem. So the ecosystem has many parts and many players that are kind of interdependent upon each other. I've been in the business about 30 years.
I know, so we got to start, let's go a little back so we can hear how you did land here.
Well, so my story is much like a lot of great people. I was in college and worked for a furniture store. I had a great gentleman who brought me into the industry when I was working graduate school in the furniture business, and it was really kind of the forefront of the internet. So I did a term paper on internet commerce back in 1995. And a friend of mine said, hey, I'm working in a furniture store here in town, and I think we need some part-time help, and we're starting to explore internet, and would you be interested in that? And I was like,
why not?
But this is while you were going to college?
Yeah, I was in grad school.
So grad school, but what were you going to college for? Was it to be in the furniture industry?
I was
or
not going in to be in the
sales, or
furniture business. I could assure you. No, I
did you have an aspiration to?
I thought at one time I wanted to be in finance. I thought I wanted to be a banker, and thank goodness that no one really ever wanted me to. I'd worked in finance a little bit after undergrad, and then I worked in marketing for about 3 years, and then went back to grad school, and that's where I met some folks in the furniture business. And it's just, there's so many incredible personalities and great people in our industry. And, I'll back up a little bit. My father was a merchant, was a men's clothier, and my grandfather was too. They had a great men's store in the upper end. And my mom was a lifelong educator. So my mom taught and was a school administrator for 30 years. So I kind of got the best worlds. I love, people, and I love fashion, and I love the emotion that is elicited when people get excited about a product.
Right.
And furniture is that way. I mean, people get so excited about, think about like your favorite chair or your favorite sofa, or maybe your best meal that you've ever had at your house, or Christmas. All those things happen on furniture. And this industry kind of drew me in.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
I
never
love
thought
it
about
too.
that.
It is.
Yeah. So you're in college, and a job is what takes you in your direction.
That's right.
In
So just engaging people. A gentleman by the name of Tom Shores, who had a company called Classic Leather, and I'll get back to that here in a second. But he also owned some furniture stores and brought me in to work for him at retail part-time. And then, I think I worked for him for 6 months, and he said, "Your next job, as soon as you graduate, from I was getting my MBA, he said, you're gonna be a sales rep for us. You're gonna manage a territory." And then that was the interview.
Really?
Yeah. So he's a big basketball guy, big sports guy, and I loved sports and just loved people. And this guy had such a magnetic personality; he just drew me in, and that was about the extent of the conversation. I'll cut to a very quick end. That company, domestic manufacturer of high-end leather for roughly, I think, probably 55 years. Century and our ownership group, actually, Rock House Farm, bought Classic Leather like 3 years ago.
What a full
Really?
circle
Full circle
moment.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like that's what's also so cool about the industry is it started with so many small, local vendors, or not local, but American-made vendors. And there's just so much growth in an untapped industry, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, again, manufacturing isn't easy.
True.
It's a different equation to import. I think that you'll see more people that probably get into the import side, and whether that's tabletop or bedding or things along those lines. But furniture, has migrated a little bit or quite a bit to basically what you see is what you get. The old acronym WYSIWYG, right? So, hey, I really like that. It's pretty, and it only comes one way. And trust me, Century does some cool things like that we source from some of the best sources around the globe. But our calling card is the customization. And customization is a broad term. Customization could mean special order, and there's something like, hey, can I change the fabric on this chair or the finish on this table? That's mild customization. Customization for us gets into a much broader spectrum of like, hey, can I change the arm on that? Can I change the depth on that? Can I change the cushion on that? Can I change the stitching on that? Can I actually change the width on this or finish? And once you get into kind of those multi-axis, opportunities, there's a huge separator in being a domestic manufacturer.
Right.
So I don't mean to be so wonky, but
I
that's
think a lot
of
of people don't realize that or understand or know that. I mean, Tiffany's been in the interior design business as a decorator for 24, 25 years. I only started getting involved with her maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And had no idea that you could take, I always thought about going into a furniture store, and that's what they sold, and that's what it is, and that's all you get.
Absolutely.
But that one chair could have
thousands of SKUs.
Oh yeah, in so many different ways.
There's a great book I think came out maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and it's called The Paradox of Choice, right? And the paradox of choice is really that people want choices, right?
Right.
So, but once they get to a certain level of choices, they get overwhelmed with it. So if you've got 3 choices to make, if I say, hey, here are 3 shirts to choose from. Do you like this shirt, this shirt, this shirt? You feel empowered. You get to make a selection. Yeah, if I say there are 50 shirts, you go, whew. That's a lot. The buttons are different on this one, and the material's different on this one, and the fit's different on this one. And that's the lovely thing about having an interior design who can come in and say, here is what you need. The scale of your house is this. the architectural elements in your home are this, or are going to be this if you're doing a new build.
Exactly.
And here is what fits in. So finding great design professionals and consultative selling, those are linchpins to success of our industry, and certainly of our price point with all the option sets we have.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. And I always loved, like, my first, like, Century did the line with Oscar de la Renta, and I was just, like, always, because I was an Architectural Digest junkie through the years, and, you know, just always craved all that information of what these people lived like, you know, behind the scenes, intimate pictures. And, like, to me, that was, like, one of my first, like, introductions to Century.
Sure. You know, and Century over the years has done multiple kind of pathways to success. And some of our talent has been internal talent in terms of design. So Bill Faber and these storied names that have been in our industry that worked exclusively for Century designing product for our brand. You know, just over the years, we've had some incredible talent come through and stay and tenure at Century. But occasionally we will reach out into the industry or an adjacent industry and find an iconic name, an Oscar de la Renta, or, you know, our current, you know, stable is just incredible. We have Thomas O'Brien, AD Top 100.
It's huge, yeah.
Jesse and Mara from Carey & Company are just phenomenal people. We've got Allison Palladino that does some great things. So I'm going to leave somebody out, so I'm sorry. But you know, our current that we've picked up is Tara Shaw. And Tara Shaw found us, and we are delighted she did. Incredible designer out of New Orleans. She has done wonderful collections before, and she has brought her wonderful aesthetic and eye and talent for developing finishes and brought that into Century. And we've got a new collection from Tara that we launched
when you say
recently.
she found you, she approached Century?
She approached us. It was almost kind of like a funny thing, a cold call at market. So we're all at High Point Market, you know, twice a year, and she kind of knocked on the front door and said, hey, you know, I'd like to speak to somebody about, you know, maybe developing a collection for y'all. I admire your brand, but, you know, don't know and I mean, for that to happen, you should hear her tell the story. We've got it on our website. Yeah. It's like, that is like the furthest outlier you can find in how these things happen. And she kind of found us, and I think she sat with like our creative director and eventually maybe got with our CEO, Alex Shuford, and they looked at her portfolio. They knew who she was and her impact, and she's just a delightful person.
So did she come with a portfolio of designs or ideas
she
pitching?
Is one of these wonderful people that has this incredible passion and desire and ability to go over to Europe and all around the world and find these antiques and just bring back the real thing. And
which New Orleans kind of sets a stage for that.
You get down to Magazine Street and just, you know, Royal and all these wonderful places in the French Quarter, and
there's
you see these
inspiration
incredible things. And she can tell you the detail of like where this came from and, you know, original design
she's really
inspiration.
Like a furniture historian to a degree.
She is absolutely all of that, and has in a bag of chips, as the kids say. It's great to see her do her thing, and she does it in such a genuine way, and she is authentic, and she romances it, and she's got this beautiful, you know, I think she's got that New Orleans drawl now. I don't know whether that's native or if she's been down there on Magazine long enough to kind of pull it out of her, but it's just beautiful.
Well, I love what those collaborations bring to the market too. I think that they just add such a special twist. It makes people also, like, I know even when I'm selling to clients and everything, I love using some of that information because it makes them feel like they are getting something more special, unique, something that is so curated and found, not necessarily, you know, your run-of-the-mill.
Yeah, we were talking prior to the show a little bit about co-branding and, you know, are the, you know, the sum of the parts greater, or, you know, and so on. And if you look at things like that, you know, Century has this wonderful ecosystem, you know, relationship where we have incredible partners that can sell our brand and trust your clients with our brand. And then if we bring another layer of, you know, a 80 top 100 designer in there like Thomas O'Brien, or you know, or bring someone really phenomenal like Tara Shaw or Jesse and Mara into the relationship who have a design aesthetic or a specialty that we aren't tapping into, it just expands the offering and it legitimizes, you know, our product out in the marketplace even more. So it's a force multiplier.
Agreed. So how long have you been with Century?
So I'm the newbie.
Okay.
I you know, a couple weeks. So no, in all seriousness, I am seriously the newbie. I've been there about a decade now. So
and that's a newbie.
That's a newbie at Century. So, you know, a company that's been around 77 years. We've got a wonderful, you know, just group, we call it a work family. There's a family of ownership. There's our teammates who are truly our family. There's our family of partners and dealers in the field. But, Debbie Miller's upstairs, and she's been with us, I think, 51 years now in customer service, and she's sharp as a tack. And if I have a question, I go to her. And, Allison Watts has been with us, I think, pushing maybe 35, 40 years. And
so
she
really
looks, and I think we got her in the crib. I mean, Allison Harmon now, and she's married to one of our plant managers. And so when we talk about like family, it's that way. But 10 years with the company. It's been incredible.
And was Century a goal for you?
That's a great question. I had the joy of working for Classic Leather for a great part of the start of my career. I worked for a nice import company, so I learned that side of the business kind of in the middle of my career. And what I like to tell people, especially as I'm interviewing the territory managers, that's one of my roles as we bring new talent in, is that Century is where people graduate to in their career.
And you stay.
And they do. And it's because, I always, we talk in analogies quite a bit. And it's like, the kids that get to eat at the little table, the kids' table at Thanksgiving, and then get to move up to the adult table. And that was kind of the way I felt at Century. It's just, it is a company full of great people with great minds, and it is a teaching company. Love education. I mentioned my mom earlier. It's a company, if you want to come to learn, you can go in there and go to the classroom every day. It's special. And we get to come out and share it with y'all, and I get to learn from y'all too.
Right. So as you get to go out and, like you said, you're interviewing territory reps and everything like that, I always think that that's an unknown part of our business, but such a special part of our business because there is, as we've just said, such relationships founded
100%.
there. And one of the things that keeps coming back too is with these reps about like, how do you know when it's time to take on a new line, or how do you know, to add lines or not have lines. I mean, there's just so much of more entrepreneurial part of a rep life where you're more in the corporate.
Yep.
Right.
So, you have to come out in the field to figure out what's happening in the factory. We say that quite a bit. But,
true.
From like our standpoint, when we are trying to find talent and people to bring into our company, we're looking for cultural fit. And for us, that's really important. There's several litmus tests, and we have these mantras, just as you do in your organization, and it's not all posted up on the board where everybody points to it every day, but it's like, we try to do the right thing. So we don't always do the right thing, but we always try to do the right thing. And that's how we treat our customers and our vendors. We act like, we try to put and lead with empathy. We try to put ourselves in the consumer's shoes. If there's an issue that's come up or a delay, we try to do reasonable things to find solutions for people. We also try to look out in the marketplace and find people who can think like what we think. We're a fairly complex company, so we need people that can explain that complexity in smaller terms. We always point to like our iPhones, pretty complex piece of equipment, but it's fairly intuitive. So we're always fighting, how do we make things intuitive for our company? Right now, the market's changing. You asked a great question a minute ago, and I'm not sure if I got the answer. Sometimes can ramble. But you asked about, the ecosystem and the exchange maybe, or a little bit of a migration from retail to the design channel. If you look at our sales force, we've got I would never have been hired on our sales force. Our sales force is that good at Century, and I'm that proud of it. And I didn't hire them all. I've hired probably the last third, or maybe 50%. But we've got this great group of folks, many who came from the retail background that were kind of retail reps, right? So they sold big stores, they knew retail, they understood multi-stores and distribution like that. And then the market has changed. So we're now into more of a design channel business. So and that could be design trade showrooms. It could be larger design firms. We're dealing with all that, and even an emerging kind of e-commerce channel. So, and our reps are involved in all of those things.
Okay.
But we're trying to find good reps who can speak both retail as well as address the designer channel. And those are, you'd say, well, we're selling furniture. It's all the same messaging. It's all the same sales. It's all the same servicing. It's actually very different. And to find a hybrid rep like that is a challenge right now. And we've hired, the last couple of reps we've hired have a lot of interior design backgrounds. In fact, the last two that I've hired were both licensed degree interior designers who just happen to want to be territory managers.
Wow.
So as the VP of sales, You live in North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Today you're in Florida.
Yes, sir.
Are you covering the whole country? Are you traveling nonstop?
My job is I work for the sales reps. Jim Duckworth is here with us today, our great territory manager. I work for Jim and his 23 other siblings on our sales force and our several thousand customers. So I roll up to the CEO, but I travel quite a bit. I'm probably on the road half the year. I've got a lovely wife who understands that, and she will bring me my suitcase when it is time for me to take my next trip. But I travel a lot. I work with our customers, and I enjoy it. And I get out here and we look for solutions, and we look for gaps in our lineup, and we look for opportunities that we're not addressing. And we'll go out. My day it could be filled with, hey, we going into a customer's home to look at a product that maybe isn't performing like it should be, and we may be working on a multi-$100,000 opportunity with a new account. So it could be a varied degree of day of what we do and see, and we might be doing a really awesome podcast.
Right. So it really is what your reps, your 23 children are kind of bringing to you and what they need from you.
There are no 2 days that are alike. And Jim and I will laugh about this.
I love that. Yeah, that's what keeps it so interesting.
There are days where I'm the cheerleader, and there are days where I am the psychologist, and there are days where I'm the punching bag, and there are days that I'm the disciplinarian. And I covet all of those roles because they're important to the success of our team.
What's the aspect that you enjoy the most?
They all have their merits and fun. I really love the customer. If I'm sitting with the customer and with our reps and we're talking about business, but eventually we get into you're telling me about your kids and your projects and your passions. And when we get into that, that's the gold for me. We were talking with somebody yesterday and at an account, and lovely folks, and one of the ladies was from West Virginia. Now, I don't know a ton about West Virginia, but I've got great friends from there. And it didn't take us too long to find a way to cross paths. I'm also at the age where the world gets really small.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah, I love all that.
But that is my passion is just getting to know, beyond just the aspect of business. When the relationship is deep, it's meaningful. And, I have people call me on nights and weekends and ask, can we do something? Can Century make this concession? Can we find a way to get the yes for this client? And if they're comfortable enough to call and contact Jim or me or anybody in our company when they don't think it's a convenient time, but yet we are eager to help them, that's the magic for me. Sorry for the essay answer.
No, so are you intimate with every SKU and every so it sounds like that's a different portion, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you asked all of our territory managers, the Jim Duckworths of the world and the Rob Knowles of the world and John, they would probably laugh at my product knowledge or lack of thereof.
Which I think is so cool though, right? Because that's that is the ecosystem.
There are things. It's such a deep line, and we've got thousands of SKUs that we offer up, and inside of those thousands we have some that have iterations of 7 million permutations.
Right.
In our cornerstone, that's our best-selling upholstery program. So for me to know the nth degree of all of that, I can teach from a high level, and if you need me to get granular with you, I have to go bone up. So it's like studying for an exam before I lead sales training. So, but the good news is, and Century's kind of is this, we say this quite often, it's like Century is the Library of Congress. We have every edition of about every book in terms of our offering. What you need are good librarians. And we're thankful that our customer service team and our product line team and our territory managers and occasionally our VP of sales can help you out with some of that. But usually the more granular you get down into our team, the better they're going to be.
So I think more importantly from how I look at things is the amount of inventory and products you have is one thing. But what's coming in the future?
Yeah.
What's being developed? If it's a new trend or...
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother...
I'd love to be the furniture Nostradamus, man, and tell you what's going to happen. The wolf is in the bushes. But it's for us, it is trying to be relevant in the marketplace and a half step ahead. I think, as I've mentioned, our licensed partners help us see some of that. They help us see the forest of the trees and help us kind of coordinate our design efforts and aesthetics. The other thing is getting out and travel. And we've got a really strong creative team who are tasked with several things. That's making our High Point showroom look great and our Las Vegas showrooms look great and our corporate showrooms look great. But they're also tasked with making sure that our product line looks strong and relevant in the marketplace, and trying to look at colors and trends. And we have great there are great fabric mills that bring us
Right,
fashion trends
upholstery.
like that. So it's like, hey, what's the great fabric that we can apply to anything? But there is some science to it, but it's really more art. And there's some just incredible talents in our industry that have been just forefront leaders of that, and a lot of that talent's graduating out. So that's a big void in the industry right now, or who are the tastemakers.
So there really is growth.
There is growth. There's growth potential, but who are going to be the next taste makers in our industry? And it's going to probably move away from like some of these big singular names that we all have known, from the 80s and 90s
Right.
and 2000s.
Yeah.
And now it's a lot like kind of direct to consumer brands that we were just discussing.
Really?
Those folks have such great taste and do some really cool things out there. And they have platforms like
Like
what
these
we're doing now, or
influencer
social
worlds,
media,
and yeah.
where they can become very, very influential very quickly.
Right.
We were watching last night. President Trump had his cabinet meeting, but then after we watched that, the press secretary had a press conference. I found interesting because what you were just saying is that they're changing the way in which it's been for the last 50 years. They're now letting podcasters come in.
That's awesome. It's access.
An interview. Yeah.
So, access and platforms are very different today than what they've been in the past. And, and that could be whether we're talking social media or where you buy your furniture.
Right.
I mean, it's very, very different. Some of the brands used to only be exclusive to the trade. You could only go down to Dania,
Right.
Well, and
to
that's
access.
really how it was. So when you see the partner showrooms, Dania is obviously, isn't there one in Palm Beach too?
So, Century has kind of our methodology in terms of how we do things and how we distribute, and the industry is similar in some ways. But so our distribution is, Century has corporate showrooms that we actually own and operate, and that's part of our team in roughly 6 markets now. And then we have kind of what we call our partner showrooms or agent showrooms, and those are folks. We've got a couple that are branded that just have only our products in there from our corporate brand, Rock House Farm.
Right.
And then we have agent showrooms that are multi-brand.
So Rock House brand on Century. Do you branch over into any of that? You have any involvement?
So it's now Rock House Luxury Brands.
Right.
That's where we are. So I have to make sure I say that right. And our VP of Marketing, who is also one of our principals, will probably correct me on it. But so it's a quick story. That's the background. That's actually the farm that our ownership team grew up on, and it's their parents' farm.
We learned about that from
Phenomenal.
Jim.
I know.
Yeah.
To me, I just love all these
It's amazing.
backstories.
And, our ownership team, and whether they would ever listen to this or not, they're fabulous people, and they are incredibly intelligent. If they weren't in the furniture business, they'd be running Fortune 500 companies. I mean, these are just bright people who happen to be very passionate about the furniture business. But they grew up like working on a farm. Like their parents are just great people, and their folks were in this industry, and grandparents were in this industry. But I mean, they were shoveling horse stalls. I mean, these are people that work.
Which is work ethic.
Yeah, and they have brought that into their professional lives. But back to your question, Rock House Farm, or Rock House Luxury Brands, is just this It's this umbrella and portfolio of these incredible brands. And Century is, I like to think, the crown jewel. We're the organic native brand, but Holland House is part of that. Hickory Chair, Hancock and More, Jessica Charles, Maitland Smith. Yeah, these just iconic Holland houses.
I can't even really wrap my head around like how that all started to.
Yeah,
they captured all those brands.
Yeah, and it's golly, without throwing any shade on anybody, some of these Hancock and More Story brand, Jack Lachine and Jimmy Moore and that whole team just built the best, leather company
brand,
basically in the industry, and they were looking for a way to retire without really messing up their ecosystem. And it's almost like they selected the Shuford family at Rock House Farm to say.
So that was their exit strategy.
I think it was like engage and see if there's interest there. And you hate to say you kind of bequeath your company because there was a transaction, but I think that they thought they would be very great stewards of what they had built. The Shuford family would be great stewards carrying forth Hancock, and Hickory Chair is just an incredible story brand. I've got Hickory Chair in my home.
I love Hickory Chair.
Kudos to them. And, it's my mom and grandmother loved Hickory Chair, and we've got some of their beautiful pieces in my house that I covet.
Yep.
And, they got kind of tangled up in 3 or 4 things in different ownerships. And the way I view that is they were great kids with bad parents. And they just got rehomed. And they got rehomed into the Rock House family. And they are growing and doing great things again. But my involvement with them is that I know all of my peers in those companies. We collaborate and we compete. So,
healthy.
They do. And, maybe I'm looking for a rep in a territory, and, they just interviewed for a territory a year or 2 ago, and they've got a couple candidates.
So do you all get together, or are there any kind of meetings of brainstorming?
Well, we don't collude, so there's none of that. But the bottom line is that, it's a small industry, and we're friendly, and, John Pigg and Ward O'Quinn and Nathan and Sam, all these are great kind of peers, my counters. Nathan's president of Highland House, but the other names I've mentioned are basically the VP of sales, or, and I'm EVP of sales at Century. And since I've been inside a little bit longer than a couple of the other peers I've mentioned right there, they will sometimes come to me and say, hey, what do you think about this? And maybe I've got some insight that's of value to them, and maybe not. But they've got fresh eyes, so I value the way they see our company as newcomers coming in. So, but a little bit. But we also share some fabrics. There's a cool little Rock House Forum fabric story, and we share some trucking, and it's all the stuff that isn't real sexy on the back end, but it helps the business run more smoothly.
Right. And I would say that, as an industry as a whole, it is such, a very authentic group of people. It's definitely, America for, I just feel like it's, and when you go to High Point, you do feel that, and you get to be intimate with it, which I don't think the end user ever really gets to really appreciate or understand. So it's kind of our job to educate.
Well, you're great brand ambassadors, and that's the thing, is that the brand you represent, you are what your customer sees in that brand, and if it's a two-way street, right? So Century would be trading on your goodwill, right? You have the relationship with your customer. We are absolutely trading on your goodwill. You are recommended our brand to your customer, and vice versa. Let's say that we're delayed on a fabric that you've chosen for a customer, and that's not even Century. We don't make fabric at Century. We just apply it to our furniture. So we buy it from mills all around the globe. But let's say that fabric is delayed, and it's delayed, 3 months, something terrible, and your customer has, their big bridal shower that, and everybody's coming.
That's my life, right?
We've heard this call before, believe it or not. The client often looks to you and are upset with you, and maybe not Century, and certainly not our fabric mill. So that ecosystem is super important, and we often have to write a note of apology, and I'll write handwritten apologies every other week, and we tell people, I'm sorry. Please don't be upset with our customers, who have spec'd our product and brought our brand to you. Be upset with us, and we'll do better next time.
I love that.
That's the doing the right thing, or trying to do the right thing.
Right.
So there's another aspect that I find really fascinating about Century is the sustainability, the program that's in place. It's quite an amazing program.
That's a great question, and we pride ourselves as of being makers. And if you're a maker, you're held to a higher standard. And whether it's our forestry sustainability, what we, the lumber that we harvest and use, to our finishing, to the way we treat our employees, we've got a great group of
your
folks.
Packaging, the cardboard you use, even the fact of water hyacinth plants.
Oh yeah.
I read that and I saw that, and I'm pretty in tune with that.
Sure.
I ran a company that was an FDA over-the-counter product that was a plant-based product.
Right.
And then when I saw the water hyacinth plant and the fact that for your rattan and whatnot, that you're doing that,
Yeah, natural materials, big thing for us, and there are lots of regulatory things that we have to kind of keep our pulse on to make sure that if we're producing it, we certainly have to have a high level, but we have visibility of that. If we're sourcing something around the globe, we have to have documentation, and we're good boy and Girl Scouts.
Yes.
We are very.
But I don't think your Century promotes it enough, or talks about it enough, because it's some great.
I think 10 to 15 years ago, people really got into the green story.
Correct.
And there was a little bit of kind of what you kind of call greenwashing. People like, oh, hey, we're putting less,
Eco,
that's right. We're putting less, petroleum-based stuff in our foam cushions, and we're using more, soy-based and all this stuff. And and there was some very, very great stories and truths to a lot of that. The bottom line is just do the right thing. I mean, tip over for us has been a big thing in the industry with, I'm sure you probably heard about, like, full extension drawers and things that fall over. And there's some things that were in a couple of the big boxes were some terrible outcomes for some families and small kids.
Right.
And again, a majority of our products already were built in a way that there was no issue.
Yeah.
But we had to go back in and back weight some things and shorten some drawers. Again, good Boy Scouts, good Girl Scouts, do the right thing. And, if you do the right thing, the outcome generally will be what you want it to be. But it's a great thing.
It's a good philosophy.
But when you read all the things that Century does, it's a very impressive
we list. I was with our VP of marketing and one of our principals the other day, and we were talking about that in particular. It's on our website. It's on our consumer website. But you have to go deep into the mine, in the bottom of the mine to find that. But it's sustainability statements and all the accreditations that we have.
No, even when you got to dig to find that, and then when you read through it, it's like, wow, this company, but as big as this company is, as long as it's been around, and they're really like carrying on so many different levels. But even the video that you have about the company and the history, it's kind of buried. I watched the video. It's a great story.
This is like coming out in the field to figure out what's happening in the factory. It's like, again, we need to hear this because we know this is important information. It's where do you house it and how do you make it visible without looking like we are beating our chest and being braggadocious about things that are simply just doing the right thing.
But we were talking before we had the podcast about this one home that we're starting on. I know that like the owners of that house, if they saw that video, they would be more in tune going, that's the kind of stuff
these
that
are
we
people
want.
I want to do business with.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and people do want to know that what they're buying does have, sustainability and lasting,
And the craftsmanship.
Sure.
It's like, it's not being done in some factory in China. It's being done in America. And when you watch the video and how it's being done, it's very interesting.
The thing is, too, is like people's attention spans, right? So they will tune in and watch something. But
you take short little, tidbits of it and put it on Instagram.
I was going to say about social media. Like, do you get involved with social media? Because like what Scott just said, like those are
from a sales standpoint.
Yeah. So, for us, it's unfortunately, I've got a face made for radio, right? So they don't need me.
I wouldn't say that.
They don't need me in front of the camera. They need me talking to customers and building the relationships. We've got some great people that head up our social media. Alexa Keeney and Cumber Ware back from our marketing team kind of head ours up. And we've invested in that platform right now, or those platforms to kind of elevate us. Our customers, I think, do it so much, and partners do it so much better.
They do.
And but you're marketing, right? You're kind of marketing to the client. And we are kind of marketing to, our partners, right? So it's kind of a weird thing. But we're also marketing out to the client, so they're pulling the product back through our partners.
Right.
But what we're finding is that, while we can have all that information out there about sustainability, a short video clip of that is what people really want. They want the news highlights, the executive summary,
attention span.
And the same thing on product, right? Like we can go way down into the rabbit hole and show you all the 7 million permutations of this upholstery program, Cornerstone, that's phenomenal. Or we can show you a 30-minute clip that you can get multiple depths and multiple arms and multiple legs and put it in any fabric you want and tailor make this to you and your client's needs. Mm-hmm. And if we can do that in a video that's compelling and professionally shot and looks great and resides in a very clickable place, then we're making good things.
What advice would you give an individual who's looking to break into the furniture industry?
That's a great question. I'd probably need to figure out a little bit about where they're trying to get in. Are you trying to get into what segment of the industry? The first thing I would say is look and learn about the industry a little bit. Find someone that's already in it and try to kind of connect with them and say, what are your passions? Do you want to try to work with a customer? Are you creative? Do you want to try to do marketing or media or product? And they go, well, I don't know any of those things. I think working for a design firm or working for a furniture retailer is the greatest experience you can have in our industry. you have to understand where the customer transacts and the client transacts. And, you know, there are great opportunities for people to come into design firms and be like a junior associate designer or a librarian or resource manager or pulling things or a little, you know, assistant project manager. I think those are great things. Or just kind of a gopher. Hey, I need you to go out and meet this client and, you know, give access
on the job
here.
Training.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's how you learn. You learn through that kind of, you know, being submerged in it. And then if you have the opportunity to work in a furniture store, I think you learn so much, not just about like dealing with the client and customer, but I think it's the back end that is really the magic. You learn how furniture is received and repaired and installed, and you also see the sales cycle of how it's entered and just how all of those things are so important of how they work and how it's displayed. You know, and just I learned so much. I mean, these little ladies that I work with when I was in my early 20s taught me about this industry inside and out. And I mean, they would grab me by the arm and march me over to something and explain. Exactly. You never sell a bed without selling a mattress with it. Why would you? They're getting a new bed. Why would they not want a new mattress? And I mean, just things like that you go, bing, lights come on. So I think if you can get with somebody that's in the business and passionate about it, and we need a farm system. We need people coming into our industry. And
it is an untapped industry. And another thing that I found fascinating is when I was listening to some podcasts, they were saying how this industry really won't get disrupted by AI.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like that's something that's so important to the youth today, because look, you're coming in here obviously from a very business side of things. You know, like we talked to Jim, it's more it's business, but it's also entrepreneurial. You know, there's just so many facets. And for me, it's more on the designer and the sales to an end user. And it is a really beautiful ecosystem of positive people. You know, it is like family centered for the most part, even as these brands start to get bought up, which I do sometimes worry, just because all these fabric companies are now like under one umbrella and all these furniture companies. But I find it interesting too that they are really being bought up by such like family brands. So like I like that. It's not necessarily, you know, a venture capital type of situation. It's still staying in a, you know, a family, a more entrepreneurial environment.
Sure. Well, there's so many different relationships that make our industry go. And, you know, we've talked about kind of the distribution side from designers and trade showrooms and retail stores and so on. And those are all incredibly important. But if you look back up channel, you start thinking about, you know, for us as a manufacturer, think about all the people that have to kind of be involved to make this happen at Century. So, you know, that could be our lumber vendors, it could be our fabric mills, it could be our foam and cushion manufacturers, it's our corrugated container makers that make our boxes for us, and then we have our own custom box machines. You know, it's our fabric, you know, we have these automated fabric machines that actually do incredible cutting. You know, it's our Catawba Valley Community College that has our Furniture Academy that is teaching an apprentice program to get folks into doing this.
For apprenticeship.
Absolutely. And Century is a founding member of that. And there are all those relationships, and that's just getting product to supplies to actually get to the build side. And then it's like, you know, it's Duke Power that's our power partner. And, you know, and I know you would say, well, that's so corny to think about that, but it is so many parts and pieces before we even get to starting to build furniture. And, you know, there is an apprenticeship that goes with it. Same thing like in sales reps or territory management. You find a lot of people that bring their family members in. When they find a good company, they bring their family members in.
And
you know,
I love that.
There are multiple territory reps, I'm sure, that service your accounts.
I have a rep whose son is now coming
exactly,
in,
or niece or nephew.
It's wild.
And it's really kind of a cool thing. And we talk about our industry being family centric.
It is.
It really
special.
is.
So when you say apprenticeship from a craft and construction and building of furniture?
So you alluded to AI earlier and how that could maybe be a big disruptor in certain industries. I think it can enhance our industry.
Well, enhance is great, but
But, you know, it's not going to build furniture for us tomorrow morning.
No.
It's not going to make upholstery. So, you know, back to the apprenticeship is that, you know, building furniture isn't just stamping out quarters.
Right.
I mean, you know, there's a segment of the market that stamps out quarters. That's not what Century and anyone in the middle to high end or luxury side of this does. They build custom furniture. And that's a handcrafted thing. That's rubbing finishes. It is putting 6 pleats on this arm and making sure that I can work the left side as good as I can work the right with 6 pleats. And this arm is, 6 inches in diameter if it's a rolled arm. And that inch has got to be 6 inches. This one can't be 4 inches and this one be 6. And it's that level of art and science, right? And more of it is art. And we are in a little bit of a dry spell of bringing that type of talent into the industry. And whether it's building the furniture, designing it, selling it. I mentioned the creatives right now. I'm really worried about the creative side of this industry from the manufacturing side.
We feel the same way in certain aspects, like really good. You can do fantastic millwork on a wall.
Sure.
It's like a dying craft. Millwork that's for a ceiling.
Yeah, and you hear about somebody retiring, you go, please don't.
Like,
even wallpaper hangers.
Sure.
It's
the trades.
Yeah, there's certain trades that.
And if you're good at what you do, you naming your own price to a degree, because there's not a lot of substitution for it.
It's so true.
Especially when they're really good.
100%.
And you can rely on them. I mean, that you really truly can, test to their integrity.
Sure.
For sure.
You know what you're getting.
Yes.
Do you see a trend or a direction that the industry may go in the future? Like how I have seen that a lot of furniture stores have gone. And I feel like there's more designers or interior designers or firms.
Yeah, I think that it depends on what channel you're in. If you're in retail right now, I mean, we're certainly seeing the independently owned, the family stores.
Right.
We're seeing that probably wane a little bit. It's not going into non-existence, but it is waning, and part of that is it's second generation or third generation is now in the business. The property value has probably far outweighed the value of the business.
Right.
Correct.
So hey, it's a piece of property over here on A1A, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, it's time to sell.
We've
Market's
seen that
up.
happen with kitchen cabinet companies that have.
So you're not seeing as many of the independent furniture stores. You still see nice kind of multi-store chains that are upper end. Those still exist in this world. There are fewer of them than I wish there were. But what we are seeing is more of this kind of what we call boutique retail, and that might be hey, out front it's on a really kind of cool area in a cool little neighborhood, or shopping district. And, it's a couple designers and they've got a cool storefront and there's some furniture in the front, and the back is where the action happens. The back is there are projects laid out and there are 2 or 3 designers back there just kicking it.
Yeah.
And they're selling things up front and candles and furniture and all that, but in the back is where the projects are happening.
Right.
That's the trend I'm seeing in retail.
Right. Well, the internet has certainly.
Sure.
But from our perspective, like we don't do anything with the internet or the internet retailers that are. Selling. I mean, for us, the internet is logging on to a Century site or logging on to.
I think the upper end struggles with the internet because of the tactile thing, and it's hard to see the value without actually being in the product and seeing and working in a consultative way. It's not going away. I mean, I shop on the internet every day,
right?
But I think design firms have a very healthy future. We're seeing more and more people hang out their own shingle and give it a try. And we're trying to figure out the best way to keep that ecosystem happy, because we have vested interest in our showrooms and our showroom partners and design firms and interior designers. We need good ways for people to access our brand and for margin to stay healthy for all parties. And we are thinking about that day and night. We are absolutely committed to that.
One of the reasons why Tiffany wanted to do this podcast is to try to educate people more the fact that going to an interior designer or a design firm actually doesn't cost more. It gives you so
Your
many
value is
opportunities
more.
And
my wife and I redid our kitchen right before COVID. I mean, literally right before COVID. And, I know a bazillion people. I am not a tastemaker. Hopefully I match today. So I'm sitting up here with 2 good-looking people who are well-dressed. But I went out and hired an interior designer to do my home, and and it wasn't one of these AD top 100s. They're lovely. It was some good people locally, and it's because I needed to be able to see the forest of the trees. And my wife and I maybe weren't in agreement or something, and we needed someone to win the jump ball. We needed somebody to say, your wife's right.
Yep.
Because she's right. But it helped us in some space planning and doing some things that are not my forte.
Right. Things that you should think you're
and
not thinking about because you don't do it. I love it.
An interior designer or a firm will also help you through, just like with Century, the vast catalog and opportunities and options.
That's right.
That we'll make your home just so much,
and you're going to be happy. And we talk about having analogies. So a Sherpa, the person that helps you climb Mount Everest, is the most valuable person on the trip. And
Correct.
It's like they're the ones that have climbed it before, and it's just another hike for them, and it's a lifetime event for me.
That's a good analogy.
I love that.
We need good
one.
Sherpas.
Yeah. I love that. Well, that's a positive note. We have a fun little wrap up of some interesting little questions to ask you. What is your favorite restaurant?
From a design standpoint.
Design-wise.
Do you have one?
From a design standpoint.
One that you've walked into.
It could be the design of the food too, or I even joke it could be the lack of design. Like sometimes, like barefoot in the Keys is a good idea.
Let me think. Let me come back to that. That's a heck of a question because it's funny. I lived in New Orleans for a couple of years, so I love just eating. So let's start with that.
Which is such a foodie town.
And like Commander's Palace is just such a fun place in New Orleans down in the Garden District, and it's an old house, and that's kind of where Emerald was the chef. And and it's well appointed, and it's kind of uniquely New Orleans. It's just a cool place, and their green is kind of their calling card, which is now back in favor, and it's a wonderful dining experience, and it's a cool place that just has a cool vibe to it. Also, like Gene and Giorgetti Steakhouse up in Chicago, and it's not because there's anything from a spectacular standpoint of like aesthetic in there, but it's just authentic. Like it's leather and it's tufted leather
it's an
and
experience.
It's like walnut and mahogany and it's throwback. And when you feel, and everybody in there looks like they've worked there for 35 or 40 years, and they're wearing white crisp tuck shirts, and they're these little Italian guys that are phenomenal. And to me, that's like when you're in there, you kind of smell the environment, and it's just awesome.
That's the beauty of what you do, too. You get to go to all these.
Yeah, and I'm showing it. I mean, I bring it with me.
It sounds like a place in Charleston called Hall's.
Oh, yeah, Hall Steak Chop House. Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah, great place.
Yeah.
Great place.
Yeah.
So you can get a good steak in a lot of places. And Charleston's done some really cool things.
Charleston, I'm loving it.
Yeah,
Loving
it's
Charleston.
if you're a young professional, you want to live in Charleston, Austin, or Nashville. That's where everybody's moving right now. If you're right out of college,
I keep telling my girls, I think that's a good idea for college.
So let's ask another question. Hotel design. Is there any one that comes to mind that you would say that? Wow, that was a really interesting design or cool.
That's a great thing. Typically, I'm a business traveler, so I don't get to stay at all the fancy properties. We were out in Vegas a little while back, and we go out for market, and it's always interesting to go out there and just see the things that are happening in those large casinos. And it's it's just amazing to see. I think we were in the Bellagio, and it was right before Tet, and they had all the beautiful flowers and things happening out there, and a big flower panda. I've got a picture I'll show you here in a minute, but it's, I'm always amazed at just like how well appointed those places are, and Caesars,
so true,
and just
right?
like, when you walk through, you're just in amazement because they want the experience to be something that you don't, and clearly I haven't forgotten it.
Right.
I walk through and I look at it and go, the architectural and who did the design.
Yeah.
Like
he's starting to appreciate all those details now.
They're so vast.
Yeah.
He's seeing the world through a different lens.
And everything came together.
Yeah. It's, like there's people like Frank Gehry that did all these kind of cool
I
melted
know.
things.
My daughter just did a paper on him,
and
it was just so much fun for me to read.
And I think he did a children's hospital or something out in Vegas. It's right beside the Las Vegas market. It looks like a building that's melted down. And it's so cool. And,
everything is with such intention.
Yeah. I've got a great friend that I met in the industry kind of early along named Tad Gallion up out of West Virginia. And he did master resort design for like the Broadmoor Resort and the Greenbrier and Hershey Lodge. And I mean, these guys are so much fun, and they're just like us. They're not hoity-toity. I mean, they can put on airs, but they are just great people. And then they got into like the bourbon business, so it's just they're interesting people. But it was always fun to hear them describe these properties and just how excited they would get about getting to work in those properties. And
their legacy
Tag had
properties.
a design studio in the Greenbrier in the basement. I mean, and these are just everyday cool people that are super talented.
Oh my God, I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
cool. So cool. Well, thank you.
It's the other way around. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so
for
much
hosting me.
for
I didn't really
joining
know
us.
what to
Thank you,
expect.
Tim, for bringing
y'all
it
are just
by.
wonderful people, and you've got a cool story here. And thanks for being just great and hospitable hosts.
Well,
means
we
a lot.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Super.
Thanks.
All right. iDesign Lab.
iDesign Labs podcast is an SW Group production in association with the 5-Star and TW Interiors. To learn more about iDesign Lab or TW Interiors, please visit twinteriors.com.